I want to welcome you to Eugenia's talk and give you a little bit of a bio. I'm super stoked that she's here with us at conferences here. I want to tell you a story too. One of my colleagues who's on team with us emailed me a few weeks ago and was like, "Oh my God, we have to get this person." And I was like, "We already have her."
Oh, that's awesome.
So Dr. Eugenia Duodu,
Yes.
is the CEO of Visions of Science Network for Learning, VOSNL.org, a charitable organization engaging youth from low-income communities in programs and opportunities related to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Eugenia is an award-winning chemist who holds a PhD in chemistry from the University of Toronto. She is an advocate for education and creating equitable opportunities for underrepresented youth to achieve their full potential. Can you join me in welcoming her?
Thank you for that introduction. It's always weird to hear that, but yeah, that is me. I am a chemist, and I am also the CEO of Visions of Science, and that's what I do full time actually running this organization. I do want to talk to you not only about the work of our organization, but in a more broad sense, kind of how our community-based model or making community-based connections can change and improve learning outcomes for marginalized youth and what that looks like. And I will end with a more interactive Q&A after if anyone has any questions or comments or anything like that. And I am a very, I don't know how to say it, just regular person. So, just let's roll with it. And if you have anything to say, if you have any questions, please ask after and we can get into it. So thank you so much for introducing me. As was said, my name is Eugenia Duodu, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of Visions of Science. I'll be talking about this a little later on, but I did do my PhD in chemistry at the University of Toronto, and I also did a double major in chemistry and biology at the University of Toronto as well during my undergrad. So lots of science in my life. It's been with me forever, but we'll get into kind of different things. So I say hashtag STEM because everyone seems to be talking about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math is trending all over. It seems to be the main topic of discussion in many circles. Every single person wants to kind of engage their youth in this. Obviously, we are talking about the science of everything of the STEM, but I'll be using that term just in the context of some of the work that we do. But STEM is linked to education, and I was actually just at the Canadian Science Policy Conference in Ottawa, and we were talking about the importance of science literacy and STEM literacy for the public. And whenever we talk about the public's opinion on STEM or science, we also need to just know that how deeply education impacts that. So I kind of see the two hand in hand as we do. Why STEM? Why is it important? I'm clearly preaching to the choir, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's an economic driver for engaging youth in STEM. Apparently, I'm not saying apparently, at least 70% of future jobs will require some basic STEM literacy and skills. And however, we have a bit of an issue in Ontario, according to HECO. 39% of incoming grade 9 students completed grade 12 math, and only 29% complete grade 12 science. We all know that math and science are huge prerequisites for many STEM-based programs in university and college. So that dropout rate for youth is something to be concerned about, and it is quite alarming. A lot of organizations have done a lot of work in this space, not only Visions of Science, but also national organizations like Let's Talk Science, Actua, have done a lot of outreach work in order to engage youth, as some of the known reasons for this broad disengagement amongst youth is surrounded by the negative perceptions around STEM, the lack of academic and career connections being explicitly explained when we talk about STEM. So what do I mean by that? A lot of youth don't think that it's important still. I don't know what to do with this. What am I going to do with the degree getting back? What kind of job am I going to get? So not understanding that there are direct career connections to their academic journey. And then just a lack of integrated learning opportunities where youth are able to see STEM kind of outside of their classroom or in everyday life. I always say this with all the youth that we're working with, STEM is happening to you whether you like it or not. So it's your choice whether you want to actively participate, but once you walk into a room and turn on the light switch, it's happening to you. So how do we kind of demystify STEM just being regulated to a couple of subjects at school and make it more part of everyday life and bring on those integrated learning opportunities? So those have been some of the documented reasons for the broad disengagement in STEM learning. But some of the documented solutions, well-researched ones, have been to obviously start off youth early, make sure that we're fostering interest early and enhancing awareness about these key opportunities that are available to STEM. I'll also take it a step further. Obviously, there's been so much work done around making sure that STEM and science literacy is something that is more palpable for the community. So making sure that there are representative role models and making sure that there are enriched learning opportunities outside of school. And I'll get into that as well. All of this to be said, and I gave a talk not too long ago a little bit about this, is we talk about STEM, we talk about the importance of STEM, we talk about the importance of science, we talk about the broad disengagement, but there are demographics of young people that are continuously left out of this STEM field. I'm just going to hone in on one group. But when we consider youth from low-income and marginalized communities, we need to understand and recognize that there are multiple barriers that they face to meaningful engagement in STEM. And some of these barriers are entrenched, they're systemic, and some of these barriers are structural, psychosocial, whatever they might be. These barriers keep youth from being able to be meaningfully engaged, and that lack of meaningful engagement does result in detrimental outcomes, which I'll speak to in a bit. Some of the barriers, and these are a few, literally just cherry-picked 3. Limited financial capacity is one, especially when we think about socioeconomic status. Why that could be important. If you consider even something as simple as being involved in an enriched learning opportunity, if there is a cost associated with it, even if there is a bursary available, once there's a cost associated with it, many parents are completely deterred from going further. You definitely need to have a parent who's willing to kind of go the extra mile to make that phone call, to look into that small line item of the bursary to see if they're able to participate. And it's not only cost financially. If you consider families who have to travel to get to some sort of enriched learning opportunity, the cost of that travel, the cost of going to that summer camp. If you have multiple siblings in a family and the oldest sibling is responsible for taking care of the younger ones, that older sibling might not have the opportunity to be able to pull away from their duty as babysitter to go participate in enriched learning opportunity. So when we say limited financial capacity, it's a lot more nuanced than just they can't afford it. It goes beyond that. So I wanted to point that out. And the second is negative perceptions. And I don't think we really appreciate how much this plays into how youth engage in STEM. Not negative perceptions as well, I think STEM is bad. I don't think that it's important to me. Negative perceptions to say, well, I'm not going to be participating in this anyway, so why bother? And where that comes from, we'll get into that, where that could come from is just a lack of representation, a lack of awareness that there are other people that do STEM that look different from what we've seen in our textbooks. I'll talk about a bit about personal stories. But negative perceptions even stem from school. If I didn't do well in science class, that feeling of I just can't participate can carry me throughout my educational journey And then beyond that, it can also prevent, it can prevent participation in meaningful engagement opportunities in the future. And then obviously limited access to opportunities. There are many opportunities available, but who knows about them? Who's being made aware, and who gets access to these? It's a very complex interplay of barriers. But regardless, this has resulted in the persistent underachievement and underrepresentation of youth from low-income communities in STEM fields and research. And we can get into the stats regarding that later. But EQAO tests clearly show a correlation between postal code and achievement in science and math. Really, there shouldn't be, but why that is and where that's coming from, spoiler alert, I don't have the answers for you, and I'll talk about why I don't have the answers for you as well. So how can we bridge this opportunity gap? So I say visions of science, not as we are the answer, just an example of what we're doing to kind of be able to bridge this opportunity gap. So what our organization does is we aim to advance educational achievements and career aspirations of youth from low-income and marginalized communities, and we provide hands-on and consistent and free STEM learning directly within the communities that youth live in. And our programs are community-based. It's actually outside the school, outside of the classroom. If you go downstairs on a Saturday morning, you can do STEM with your friends from your community. It's as simple as that. And that's kind of what we're trying to do to demystify and take down some of the barriers that I talked about. Really briefly, we have 4 main programs: our summer learning camps, our in-school enrichment program, which I will talk about because people are very interested in that sometimes, our community STEM club, and our STEM community leaders program. And I'll really only be focusing on STEM community leaders and the community STEM clubs today. But essentially what we're doing is providing informal learning environments. And obviously as educators, you're responsible for the formal learning of formal teaching of science. But there is a lot of evidence to support that when youth face unique barriers to engagement, informal learning environments can serve to bridge some of those gaps that I talked about. And regardless of whether these are being provided for youth from low-income communities or not, they are provided for youth. So also making sure that we're ensuring a level playing field where there are enriched opportunities available. Not everyone has access to them. How do we ensure that they are truly accessible for all youth? So we've just decided to target low-income youth. But what opportunities that this provides is a free, hands-on, student-directed, collaborative, and community-based approach to learning. One thing that we do is our community STEM clubs program. So that's for youth from grades 3 to 8. And it's exactly what I said, it's bringing STEM learning to the community. And pairing consistent caring staff and volunteers, science experiments, which we curate in-house and also work with educators from across the city and various STEM-based institutions, and then also with a network of partners. And we do this every 2 hours, Saturday mornings, in 24 communities across the greater Toronto area. And we kind of end the school year or the program year. So our program year runs for 27 sessions, and we end with a culminating visionary expo or somewhat of a science fair where youth are able to present their learning to each other, present it to their community. It's not for marks, it's just for show and for the pride of having a medal at the end. There are tears, but everyone is happy at the end. And so we also take them on trips to different institutions. So we'll create experiences where we can take them to the university campus for the first time, and they'll be able to do hands-on STEM at the university campus as well as within their community. Really quick, we've been able to see interest in understanding and engagement in STEM, increased understanding and interest in STEM, but we've also been able to see some changes in social emotional learning amongst our participants. It's simply because of the nature of the program, so being able to be consistent throughout the school year and being in an environment where they're continuously building on their skills and being held accountable for their actions and their interactions. And so we're able to see some movement there, similar to what you would hopefully see in the classroom. So as I said, we engage 24 youth, over 500 on an annual basis, and we engage 90 volunteers annually. So as a scientist, as someone who studies science, one of the things that we really wanted to do, and I really wanted to do when I assumed this role, is make sure that we were publishing and also getting what we do out there to the public. So we did publish this paper in the International Journal of STEM Education, just as a case study of the community STEM clubs, the logistics of running something like this and what the outcomes were. And we didn't talk about, the kids like science better and they're so much better and we're the saviors of the world. We really actually talked about what are the challenges and opportunities of doing engagement with youth in this way, in a Canadian context. There is an overwhelming amount of data available for our types of organization in the US. There is almost nothing available in the Canadian context. And part of the reason is when we look at data and we look at engagement and achievement in STEM, there isn't anything that looks at race. There isn't anything that looks at socioeconomic status. Our findings on socioeconomic status and the connection to STEM was a result of lots of digging and putting together numbers. But we do know there's a problem, but part of the deeper problem is that the problem has not even been researched. We know we have some issues in our education system to kind of unpack, but also having that data available can equip organizations, not only like ours, but other organizations that are seeking to be in this space, to actually make evidence-based, informed decisions about how they build their curriculum and modules. So that's my advocacy plug for today. But with this, some of our key successes was, as I said, the community context. A lot of our youth came back saying, this is right down the street from me. I can walk downstairs. Another one was the consistent engagement. And a result of the consistent engagement was the retention. Many times and from many STEM-based opportunities, you go to a workshop one day, you come home and you never see these people again. We are in their communities for 27 weeks, year after year. So some of the communities that we've been there for 6 or 7 years, so we've actually seen our youth grow. And we're able to track their STEM engagement right into high school, and I'll talk to you about our high school students. Super know what's happening with them. And then the positive youth and staff relationships. Knowing that, so many of our youth, the ones that really, we do a lot of entrance surveys with them, youth that have great teachers that encourage and elevate them. I'm sure many of you are in this room. They talk about these educators, they talk about these teachers, they say, this is the reason why I like science, this is the reason why I'm here. For some of our youth, they do not have that fortune. Maybe they're just connection with science isn't the greatest. So we have to do a lot of work in terms of outreach to get them out of the house and to get them to say, even though you had a bad experience in science in school, how about you come try it in this context and go back to school and see how that goes. So really trying to break that down. And one of the things that comes out of that is really fostering positive relationships with the staff and volunteers that are in each community. All the staff and volunteers that are part of our communities actually have to sign up for the entire year. Our volunteers dedicate themselves for that entire year, every Saturday for 2 hours, and some of them have been with us for years on end. So really making sure that there is that consistency. Challenges. When you say community-based issues, there are many. Obviously, we are operating directly in low-income communities. We are susceptible to successes and challenges that happen in that community. If there is a shooting in that community, if there is anything that happens in the community, we feel the brunt of it as a community-based program. So really having to navigate that, working with our community partners, making sure we're very aware of what's happening on the ground, and making sure that we've developed really positive relationships with our parents and our community partners, as I said, to mitigate these issues. Limited resources. We will go into one community and have a kitchen, access to tables, chairs, everything. We'll go into another, and none of those things will be there. But this is the space that we're supposed to be using to run science experiments. So how do you do that? We have gotten very creative with the additional, if you don't have running water, this is how you can run this experiment. Or there's a water jug in your experiment kit. Go find that. We have had to know the ins and outs, every square inch of every single one of our communities to kind of be able to create content that can work in the community. Another thing, we want to make sure that the youth that we work with can feel as though science can happen where they are, that they don't have to go too far to be able to experience hands-on science. So we try our very best to see how we can make it happen around them and how we can make it accessible. Outreach and promotion. One thing that we do, a lot of people ask, how do you get 500 kids to come out every week and stay year after year? We drink a lot of tea. And what I mean by that is we knock on doors, we introduce ourselves to families, we get invited in, and we usually have to sit down and drink tea and get to know. So our outreach workers do an incredible job of fostering relationships with our parents to make sure that they're leaving us with their kids for 2 hours a week. We're gonna make sure that we get to know them. We're also trying to do that with our teachers. Any of the teachers that are in the surrounding schools that we work with, the communities that we work with, we make sure that we get to know them. We make sure that we get to know their names and their faces and who they are. And another thing that's been something that's been a positive that's been a challenge, but also a success. The challenge in that, I said, door knocking on every community is hard. Sometimes it's very hard to get kids out who are very turned off from science for whatever reason. The older they get, the harder it is to bring them in. So really trying to break down those barriers. The wider age range has posed as a challenge, but also a point for opportunity. And I'll get into that right now. So one thing that we needed to develop as a result of our programs was the STEM Community Leaders Program. And that program is targeted towards youth grade 8 to grade 12. And this came about as a result of the retention that I talked about. Youth, when they would get into grade 8, they would decide, you know what, I still want to be involved. They would tell their staff and volunteers, hey, do you need me to help out? I kind of remember this experiment. I can help out, I can help set up. And that kind of organic desire to be involved just developed into us needing to create a program for them. So we created a program specifically for our youth as they entered high school to help them along the journey, their journey with STEM. And that program is called the STEM Community Leaders. We couple experiential STEM learning opportunities, leadership and training, skills development, and community engagement in order to increase their engagement with STEM. And with that, we've been able to take them, and during the summer term, they are in a full-time 6-week summer camp where they engage in hands-on workshops on university campuses. They do a whole bunch of different things, and they're exposed to all aspects of STEM. And we kind of have curated experiences based on if they're in grade 8, 9, and 10 versus grade 11 and 12 when they have to start making more decisions directed towards post-secondary. And again, we do not work in a silo. We work with our community partners, and I will speak to that very soon. Yes, I'll speak to that very soon. So essentially, for us, STEM and community goes hand in hand. It is important to make sure that we're engaging them in a consistent way, in a long-term way, and in a way that creates a forum for success in learning. And as I said, we do not do that alone. We consider ourselves part of a STEM learning ecosystem. And that's kind of what helped me in my own walk, and I'll talk about that. But knowing that what happens at home, what happens in school, what happens at your library, what happens in your after-school program, higher education, your community, all comes together to create this ecosystem of learning around STEM. And where do we fit in? We know that we're kind of in this space of after-school service provider, but we also are cognizant of the other people around us where we can kind of leverage their resources so that we're not duplicating opportunity, so that we're not trying to do everything on our own. And that's kind of part of what I'm going to be talking about when I give tips as educators to kind of create a STEM learning ecosystem for your students, or to tap into them, because there's actually so much around and so many resources. What STEM learning ecosystems can provide are connected learning opportunities, multiple learning settings. So knowing that, as I said, and I've said this many times, science does not only have to happen in a classroom. It happens there primarily, and when it happens there, it should be good, it should be fun, it should be engaging, but it can happen other places too. So being able to point that out and being able to connect youth with that is important. And in that, making real world connections. One thing that we did in one of our in-school enrichment programs is that we created a curriculum alongside a teacher. A teacher wanted to do water filtration, but she's like, I also have to do social studies with them. So we co-created a whole module that was focused on the water crisis in Flint, Michigan, and the water crisis in Washington. And looking at what happened in both of those cases, looking at the filtration, the whole process of water filtration and the water cycle, and then having students build solutions based on that. But then also having students sit intersection of, if I was a politician in this sense, what should I have done? What should I not have done? So being able to know that science is so connected to society, science is so connected to where we are, what we're doing, and what's happening. It's not just about working on your worksheet and hoping that you'll get a good mark. It also really affects the livelihood and people's lives. So being able to encourage students to be global citizens as they pursue their science is important. Being able to bring in representative role models. I know that we can't be all things to all people, but there are people out there that can connect with our students as well. So I know a lot of teachers educators, and we do this as well, try and bring in representative role models where that's not necessarily reflected in our staff catchment or whatever, so that students can really see themselves in STEM. I know a lot of you kind of got that see it, be it calendar. I was a part of that. I got to get all glammed up and bougie, but beyond that, it was really important for me to be a part of that because that's something that I really struggled with. And I'll talk about that. But being able to bring in representative role models that students can relate to and identify with, and helping them kind of form their STEM identity. So really quickly, personally, how did I become a scientist? It was because of it was multiple things, but a student teacher, persistent teachers, and a mom that just didn't play around. So for me, I loved science growing up. I definitely was an anomaly in my community, I would say, as far as I knew. I really loved science. I was really into it. I really didn't understand why I loved it so much, but I was just connected to everything that had to do with science. I didn't know anybody that was in science or know any scientists personally, but I loved it. And my mom was really good at fostering that in me, just like giving me opportunities to explore and experiment. And when I was in school and kind of navigated through it, I realized how much of a weird thing it was for me to love science. I also grew up in one of the communities that we run programming in. And in my community, every time I would tell people I like science, it was kind of like, why? Like, it's so hard, ew, science is boring, gross. There was always this very weird cutback. And so for me, it went from being a passion to something that I made more or less kept to myself. And I definitely didn't see myself pursuing it. I wasn't aware of any career options or anything like that. I did want to continue with science after grade 10 because I had an awesome grade 10 science teacher, and I also was able to take an enriched course at my particular high school that allowed me to do hands-on biotechnology. So after that course, I was like, ooh, I'm gonna try this. Like, this looks really cool. My science teacher was also the physics teacher, and he was cool. He was also the soccer coach. I played soccer. So I was like, I can be with you for a couple more years. Yeah, let's do this. So I started to pursue it, and I booked a guidance appointment because I hadn't signed up for the 3 sciences already. Booked a guidance appointment to do that, and the guidance counselor didn't pull up my marks, didn't do anything. She was like, you're not going to be able to do that. And I was like, oh, what are you talking about? I'd like to. She's like, no, it's going to be way too hard for you. And I'm like, that's so weird because like I'm doing really well. Like I have like an over 80, I think I have an over 85 average or something. Science was my highest, one of my highest subjects. Math was one of my highest. I'm like, I don't understand what the issue is. She's like, trust me, this is going to be too hard for you. Don't even bother. You're not going to succeed. I wish I were joking about this conversation. I remember what I was wearing. It was traumatizing. So I left. She said, you're not gonna be able to be enrolled because it's gonna be too hard, and like, you're gonna have to get a note from your mom or something. But she shouldn't have done that because I told my mom. So I went home. I told my mom about what happened. And my mom was just beside herself. She was like, what are you talking about? Of course you can do it. First of all, she definitely wanted to make sure that I was okay. And she's like, don't be discouraged. Like, things like this happen. She explained a lot of things that I started becoming woke to. And she also said, you know what? Don't worry. I'm going to make sure you get into your course. And she's like, another thing she said to me, Eugenia, talk to your friends. Talk to your friends and ask them about their educational path and their journey, because not all of them have great teachers like you that know. So spoke to my mom, spoke to that teacher that told me to take physics, and he was also very upset. So he kind of, I don't know what he did, but he did whatever he needed to do to make this happen. And all of this work, 2 weeks later, I ended up in my physics, chemistry, and biology courses a month late. But, navigated through that, continued in it. I got a really cool opportunity to participate in a program that I'll talk about later, but it's called the Summer Mentorship Program. And that just changed my life. So decided to do it in my undergrad and was able to continue to go and excel and grow. Chemistry started to become my passion. My favorite and best course was organic chemistry. So I know what, but it's okay. It worked out. I have awesome profs, and then decided to do a PhD in chemistry. And now here I am, full circle back in my community. But I have to say that it was a consistent encouragement from the teachers and the people around me, but also really serendipitous opportunities that got me there. And I think one of the main things that I couldn't shake when I was in my PhD, so I did my PhD at the University of Toronto with Dr. Patrick Gunning, working on detection tools, developing detection tools for cancer and Alzheimer's. So those disease pathways. And this is a post picture of me, by the way, for something else we were doing for our lab. And then I ended up graduating, so that was cool. So one thing that I have to say is that it was a serendipitous opportunity that really changed my life. And the reason why I got that opportunity was a student teacher saw me reading a science textbook in the hallway of as I was taking a break from one of my classes, and she's like, hey, do you like science? And I was kind of embarrassed. So I was like, maybe, depends on who's asking. And so I said, yeah, I do like science. And after the conversation, she's like, you need to be part of this program at UT. You need to be part of it. It's this enriched science program over the summer. My first question was, how much does it cost? She's like, it's actually free. You have to sign up. It was targeted towards Black and Indigenous students. So she's like, well, you're Black, so maybe that'll work out, and apply and do it. I did that program, and it was a life-changing experience. I can't describe to you. I did it the summer of grade 11 to 12, and I can't describe to you what it did for me. Not only being on a university campus for the first time in my life, being able to go to a university every day, but being able to interact with doctors and scientists who I did not think existed in real life. And knowing that they're normal people, hearing their journey, hearing that they had to navigate through things too, hearing that not all of them had a straightforward path to this, knowing some of their personal lives, knowing that some of them had more struggles than I had encountered, knowing that even some of my peers had more struggles than I encountered, and knowing that we were kind of all in this together and I wasn't alone as I felt. So I went into grade 12 with like this new conviction, like I can really do this, and I'm going to university and it's gonna be awesome. And so, but that was a hallway conversation with the teacher. So I always wonder, if I didn't have that conversation, if I didn't have teachers and a mom who just didn't play around, where would I be right now? And I think for our students, we can't leave it up to chance. We really have to make sure that we're being intentional about providing them these opportunities and connecting them. So obviously you kind of understand why I do visions with science and why I care so much. But this is also why I care about kind of promoting this idea to other teachers. I do not have a time check, but I'm still good for time. Oh, okay. So one thing that I will say to all educators is have a STEM toolkit. One thing that I did after I heard about the summer mentorship program and heard about all of the programs that were available at U of T was I took every single pamphlet at U of T, at their medical school, whatever, and I brought it back to all three of my chemistry, physics, and biology teachers who were awesome people. And I was like, listen, these are available, this is available to your students. If you see someone who has a little spark, please tell them about these programs. And if they need help applying and you don't have time, call me. I'll come back to the high school and help them, because this changed my life. And also, one thing I didn't add is every single one of the people that I was in that class with, they are my very best friends. Like weddings, baby showers, all the things. Some of them are doctors already here in the US, in the UK. It's incredible. So I can't stress enough how important it is to be able to connect with these enriched opportunities, not only for yourself, but I just gained a community that I didn't have, and I really needed. So knowing that there are university mentorship and outreach programs there, and getting that list. I am working on a list for teachers, but there are many lists out there for students. There are some that cost money, some that don't. A lot of times what we do for our students is we'll advocate. Honestly, you give a call to a lot of these outreach offices, and if finance is a barrier and you advocate for your students, they will let the student in. It will happen. So just knowing, just even a list of resources that are available at the universities that are local to you. Every single university has a STEM outreach program. Everyone. Whether they're connected to Actua as a network member, someone has an outreach program that's either targeted towards elementary school or high school students. So being aware of them, just having them in your back pocket, so that if there's anything, even if it's a quick announcement, hey, there's this, and seeing what your students enjoy. Another thing that's part of the toolkit, and some of my teachers use this to their advantage, my past teachers, is guest speaker visits. I get called to schools all the time. Unfortunately, not the schools in our area. More affluent schools usually, or private schools. I get called to do a lot of speaking engagements there, which is completely fine. I'm going to do it because I want students to excel and succeed. But knowing that, that representation is important and it matters. It's very important for teachers to take the initiative whenever there's some sort of a presentation opportunity. A lot of scientists, we will do it. They will come, they will speak, they will do whatever. They are so open to that. So just reaching out to someone, if you don't know them, there are so many, and you're not very active on Twitter, I can probably follow up with a list, but there are so many people who are so willing to go into schools or even host a class. for the day in their lab, people will do it. So just being connected to them. Trips to institutions, of course. So we all know that we can go to the Science Center, and the Science Center has a kind of community pass program for schools who can afford to send their students. So the community pass program will cover admission for students, and it will also cover a bus. So if your school is eligible for that, that is an option. We also do trips to university campuses, and other institutions as well. It's not only the Science Center. There's the Evergreen Brickworks. There are so many other kind of STEM-based institutions where you can send your students to go. And obviously professional development opportunities. So this is one that I want to plug shamelessly. We are involved with the University of Toronto, Mississauga with the Amgen Biotech Experience. I do not know if they're here this week. They were here last year and probably the year before. Amgen's here, great. So the Amgen Biotech Experience, and there's also Amgen Scholars. They do professional development for teachers, and through the Amgen Biotech Experience, teachers who are teaching grade 11 and 12 biology can actually get professional development to do hands-on, I believe it's 3-week course on, is it protein transcription? I don't want to say anything that's not right. I'm not a biologist, but something to do with the red fluorescent protein. But I can't believe I forgot this. This is bad, but that's okay. They do an experiment that's just basically a hands-on derivation of what would be happening in the lab to create insulin and just the simulation of it. But teachers not only have access to that professional development, so you get to go on the university campus and learn about it, you also get a kit that you use in your classroom. And the kit comes with pipettes, like literally everything, the protein, everything that you need, and you just do it. And then return it back to the university. And this is a real thing that is happening in Canada. It's going to expand. We are part of that, so we're tasked with kind of connecting under-resourced schools with that program. But it's called the Amgen Biotech Experience. I was supposed to plug it. You could see that some of the kids, some of the youth, and some of the pictures that I showed were actually doing a lab from the Amgen Biotech Experience. I won't go back yet, but you can do that. Oh, yes. And I am at the end. I had some videos. I'll do Q&A and we'll see if you have time. But my whole mantra is kind of stems from this quote by a lady named Erica Harrison. It's numerous societal problems are waiting to be solved, and I realize more and more that we need untapped and underestimated minds to be among those creating the solutions. So I genuinely believe in this quote, not only for myself and my own life, but also for a lot of youth that we work with. This is taken from one of our year undergrad. And I can already see in this picture so many of these youth are like older now. This is like a couple years ago, so this is so weird. But just knowing that there are so many things, it's not only about connecting these youth with these opportunities because it's nice and it's like a nice add-on. It's connecting them with these opportunities because it's necessary not only for them but for us as a society. We fail and we lose when we don't have everyone that can be at the table. When they don't have the tools to be at the table, we lose. And I would hate to say some of the research that I worked on at the university and contributed to, I would hate to look back and say, I just didn't have the opportunity or I didn't have the confidence, and that's why I couldn't be part of this. So we don't want those barriers for youth to exist or be present to keep them out being able to participate and contribute in this growing field. So that is all. Thank you very much.
Jose, on behalf of STAO, we're so excited that you could be here, and I'm so grateful for your talk today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. How many minutes do we have? We're done?
We have 14.
We have 14. I can do you can do a couple of questions if anyone had any. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, what's the name of that organization?
It's called the Summer Mentorship Program.
And that, sorry, you mentioned the full team.
Oh, Amgen Biotech Experience. AMGEN. Disclaimer, I don't know if they have room for many new schools, but I will look into it. They are upstairs. Yeah, Amgen should be here somewhere. Yeah, the Amgen Biotech Experience ABE, and it's at UTM, University of Toronto, Mississauga. Does anyone have any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Eugenia, you spoke a lot to the importance of the relationships.
Yeah.
In seeing that spark.
Yes.
And I know you were trying, it seemed like you're trying to weave that in as educators. Like for you, you mentioned that hallway conversation.
Yeah.
I guess, is there anything that comes to mind that you've seen work in the program that you deliver that helps to build that relationship with students that otherwise, you've outlined the program and how well it works, but as teachers, do you think there's things your volunteers have tried that work well?
Yes, definitely. I think teachers have this really awesome opportunity to transform the lives of students, as I'm sure educators know this already. And one thing that I've seen teachers in our schools do really, really well is really have a pulse on where their students are at and be able to really connect with them with the opportunities that they need. So we had one teacher that literally was like, hey, this is what I can do in my capacity. And then she had a list of students and she's like, if I come across any tutoring opportunities, y'all are going here. If I come across any like science enrichment opportunities, you guys go in here. So when we spoke to her, she already had a list. She was ready to go because she just kind of intimately knew the needs and challenges of her students, and she knew her own capacity as a teacher. She did her best to check in and follow up, but she was like, something more is needed here, and I can only do so much. So when there are other opportunities, I want to make sure that I'm being able to be that bridge. She was also a great ally in kind of bringing in parents along when there was this hesitation or mistrust, especially for our youth program. I'd say 10% to 15% of the youth in our youth program, some of them have never been involved in visual science. We kind of have gotten recommendations from a teacher at a school or something within our catchment. So with that, it's kind of been like, let's talk to teacher and let's get everyone on board and kind of create a community of support around the student. Teachers that care are important too. And then making sure that care is not only like, did you handle this assignment, but also, are you okay? How are you as a person? And I think that's what has been an interesting connection with a lot of youth, especially the youth that come in and we're like, your attitude though, this could be a problem for us, but being able to really nurture that relationship, like, hey, we're in this together, we want to learn together, so how can we grow together to do that? And it was just that care and consistency that was important. I think the consistency part is there. The care is also there for the most part. So yeah, no problem. Yeah. If you have any other questions, I didn't leave my email here, but I am accessible. I can be found on Twitter, and I try and share as many things as I can in terms of information that I have access to. Again, I think it's a very different time now than it was before in terms of the wealth of resources that are available, especially at universities, for every type of student you can imagine. So just kind of being plugged into that and being aware that it's out there. It might take a little bit of Google search, a couple of Google searches, but there is opportunity out there, and if you need an introduction, please do not be afraid to reach out. Awesome. Thank you.